What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV. It is North London Derby weekend. We're here for a match preview stream away at the Emirates this weekend. Me and Simeon are stepping over enemy lines and going over to the red side of North London. Wash, is there a red side of North London, or are they just using their squatters' rights as usual over there? But look, we're going to be going through the match preview. We've got a new segment to bring you as well as predicted lineup. But how you feeling, Sim?
Look, the pre-match nerves are definitely starting to settle in. I always hate the 48 hours before North London Derby, because the anticipation is just like, you just get so nervous of what might happen. There's that excitement of what could be. You know, that we're playing so well at the moment. There's no reason we shouldn't go into this game full of confidence that we can go there and get a result and really play our football. But at the end of the day, we've seen it before where we've had good starts, then we come up against a better team and we come unstuck. And as well, Nuno won his first 3 games. Then I think it was his 5th game. I think we lost to Palace, and then his 5th game was Arsenal. We ended up getting absolutely turned over in that game. Last season, I think our last season was our first loss of the season at the Emirates as well. I think when we went there after
first loss of the season against
8
Palace?
games.
Oh no, that was the Nuno.
I'm saying last season. Yeah. We actually started the season with 5 wins and 2 draws, and then we went to the Emirates and got turned over as well. So there is a kind of thing we've seen this before. Did you want to go into a bit of a trepidation? But obviously there's a big difference. Last year we went into it in good form, but we weren't playing well. We were just getting results. This season we're playing very good football, and I really believe as well the way we play should be pretty well adapted to counteracting what Arsenal are going to give to us and how they play. But then again, the way we play could play into Arsenal's hands as well. So it's going to be a very, very interesting tactical battle. I'm sure it's going to be an open game of football full of chances. And at the end of the day, the home team usually wins in this fixture. So you go into this game I guess not certain that we're going to go there get a result, but I'm genuinely excited. I'm not going to this game nervous. Whatever happens, I'm sure we're going to make a good account of ourselves. And even if we do end up losing, I'm not going to end up losing all hope. And in terms of last season, I felt like this game was a bigger indication of where teams were kind of aiming for, because we went into the season thinking we could really challenge for big things last season, and obviously this game at the Emirates really, I think, was a reality check of where we actually were, I think, going last season. But this season a bit different. Even if we were to lose this game, I still am going to be very happy and excited about the season to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was saying to you before off air, saying that even if we do lose this game, but we show fight, we show the ethos of what we've been doing so far this season and have a good game, but lose out, we're not going to be too angry. And the way I'm thinking about this game, obviously you never want to lose a game like this. You never want to lose to Arsenal, and it's like a disastrous result every time you do lose to Arsenal. But the way I'm kind of coming into this game and thinking about it is kind of a free hit in a way, because if we lose, it's just what everyone's expecting us to do. If we go there and win or draw, then I think it's a major result and a major coup, having seen what both clubs have done over the past 12 months.
100%, I completely agree. And I think the biggest thing, I think that's been of the annoyance of most Spurs fans is every time we've gone to the Emirates over the past however many years. I think when we went under Pochettino, I think we got a few draws there and we were always giving a good account of ourselves. But since then, I remember we under Mourinho, when Lamela scored that Rabona, we ended up, it was a really poor performance. We lost 2-1 in that game. Under Nuno, it was probably one of the worst ever North London derby performances I've ever seen in my lifetime. Last season was fairly even game at parts, but at the end of the day, Arsenal deserved the victory, and we ended up not really, especially in that second half, turning up. So I think the most important thing is I want to see a Tottenham team turn up at the Emirates for once and actually assert their authority on the game. I want to see us actually have the ball. We haven't had the ball at the Emirates for 5 years. That's literally the reality. So I think we have a bit of PTSD in this fixture. I think it's fair to say. And so I understand a lot of fans going into thinking, we just want to go there and not lose the game. And I think if we come away with at least a point, it's a great result. But I am genuinely excited about us actually going there, playing attacking football and seeing what we can do. Because I do think Arsenal at home have defensively have been vulnerable, even in the last 6 months. Yeah. I don't think they've kept a clean sheet at home. So I think there's definitely reason for us to go there and think we can definitely go there and create chances and score some goals. But at least I'm hoping we're not going to be going there just sitting back for 90 minutes and waiting to be beaten like we have been.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird one going into it because usually Arsenal are so much better than home than they are away from home. And going into this one, it seems as though they're like much better away from home than they are at home. And they seem to like just concede goals within the first 5 minutes of every home game. And I can see that happening again, to be honest, this weekend. I think Spurs are going to start off at 100 miles an hour. I can really see us putting them under pressure in the early stages of the game and going 1-0 up. But I think it's how we respond after that. And I think Arsenal will come out firing after we do score. And it's about how we can hold them off after that. And do you really think like we can hold off with our defence what they're going to throw at us?
It's difficult to say because we haven't really seen this defence being put under constant pressure overnight, like over a significant period of time, apart from maybe Man United, where United did create quite a few chances early in that game, and that was kind of a worrying period. So you would say probably the only time we faced a good team, I wouldn't say our defence crumbled, but I would say definitely there was gaps and definitely those things you would say that you'd be worried about when it comes to like crosses in the box and things like that, which we have struggled a bit to deal with. But I think majority of the time this season, we've been the team in the ascendancy, we've been the team dominating. So we haven't seen this team come up against another team who may be better at keeping the ball than we are. And maybe we're going to have some answers to the questions they're going to pose rather than vice versa. So do I think we can hold off Arsenal with the pressure they're going to be putting us under? I don't think it's going to be. I don't think Arsenal are going to be making like loads and loads of like clear-cut chances against us, but I do see them having lots of attempts on goal, lots of periods where they're in around our penalty area and we have to hold solid. And it's tough to say because we haven't seen it, so I don't know. I can't really say no. The only evidence I would say from Man United is maybe it will be difficult for us to hold them off when they do pass under pressure. So it's definitely something to be worried about. But it's going to be an interesting tactical battle because I do think it's going to be a battle for control of the ball. It really will be. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion either way who will get that control. And it's about on the pitch who basically seizes that opportunity. And I'm kind of confident that we can do that.
I kind of get the feeling like there's just going to be so many chances at both ends. I think it's going to be a crazy game of football. I do feel like there's going to be a lot of goals in this game. And for us to go and win the game, I think that's what we need, to be honest. We need it to be an open game, and we need to be able to hit them on the break and hit them in behind. And we'll get into the lineup in a second. But in terms of the form of the two teams coming into it this weekend, I know we're on the same points, but I would say Spurs are on the better form coming into it. I think we're the more fluid team. I think we're the ones like more playing how our managers want us to play. I think Arteta and Arsenal have got the results on the board yet, but they don't seem to be that fluid in the way they're doing things. I mean, it did look like that against PSV in the Champions League, but in the Premier League so far, I don't think they're playing the way really Arteta wants them to play as of yet in this season.
Well, Arsenal fans would argue that it's actually been a purposeful move to basically have more control in games and less helter-skelter and more controlled kind of knowing what we're like, not going at 100 miles an hour, but keeping the ball a bit more. Yes, you're going to create less chances, but one thing I have noticed is they seem to be conceding a few less chances as well. And they do seem to be a bit more defensively solid. So as much as they don't seem their fluid best, they do seem to have still maintaining control in those games. And they're looking a bit more like what Man City sometimes like. Maybe I think Man City still play a bit of the better football, but in terms of just slowing the game down, maintaining control, keeping the ball, and then using your quality in the final third when you get in those areas, Arsenal still seem to have that. So I wouldn't take the fact that they've been a bit slower. I wouldn't go to say that they've been poor, because I don't think they have been, but they definitely haven't been playing the football they were last season. They definitely look a less like fresh and exciting and intense. They don't seem to be getting the same amount of chances they were definitely last season, where they were scoring a lot more goals. But I definitely have noticed that defensively, maybe not well. I think defensively, apart from maybe the Fulham game, they have seemed to tighten up quite a bit more from last season. I think their XG against is one of the lowest in the league at the start of the season. When you compare to ours, I think our defence has also been good, but we're definitely conceding more chances than Arsenal are at the moment, albeit I think we're probably creating a bit more. So I think we're looking better on the ball than them at the moment. But I would say in terms of control of games, Arsenal are still looking fairly solid.
Yeah, you say that, but Arsenal fans keep saying to us that you haven't been tested tested yet. You've had a favourable start to the season and blah, blah, blah. But, look at Arsenal's start to the season. Have they really been tested yet? They've played Manchester United. We've played Manchester United, both at home. They've had more home games. We've had more away games. And the teams that they've faced, Fulham at home, you expect them to win. They didn't win. Nottingham Forest at home, where on another day, if they came up against better quality, I think another team get back into that game later on in the game. So have Arsenal really been tested that much this season? Everton away, Everton provided nothing. Crystal Palace away is a difficult game, and they did well to finish that game 1-0 where Palace had their chance in the game. So I don't know. Have Arsenal really been tested this season?
As much as Spurs have been tested, I would agree. I don't think they're
similar start.
I wouldn't say Arsenal have had a tough start to the season. Just like I wouldn't say Spurs have had a tough start as well. So, we faced a team like Brentford as well. They haven't maybe faced a team like that yet, apart from Man United. So, I do agree with that assessment. Obviously, Fulham I expect to be in a relegation battle. Everton I expect to be down there near the bottom as well this season. Nottingham Forest, to be fair, solid team, but they just about go over the line. Palace are a solid team. So they've had I think they've had a good start to season results wise. I wouldn't say they've had the toughest test, but they've still been getting the results. And I don't think. I've never really been. I've learned apart all the games they've played and they've won. I haven't come away from those games thinking they've been lucky. I think they've deserved most of the wins. Apart from maybe the Man United game, I thought they were luckier to get the win than we were, in my opinion. Albeit Man United did have some chances in the first half against us. I felt like that in terms of how the flow of the game went. I think we were. Especially how we dominated in that second half, we were much more the better team against Man United than Arsenal were, and Arsenal can maybe count themselves lucky they got that last minute winner from Declan Rice in that game. But I feel like the game against Forest, the game against Everton, the game against Fulham and Palace, I feel like they probably deserved the wins in all those games. And yeah, Forest nearly got a late comeback, but they're already 2-0 up. And apart from that, those moments late in the game, Arsenal were never really in danger. Everton didn't have a single chance the whole game. Palace, apart from a couple half chances, never really felt like they were ever going to get an equaliser. So I did feel like they probably deserved those victories in those games.
But then when you assess it, right, and it's funny you bring up the Manchester United game because that's the only game that they won by 2 goals. Every other game that they've won has only been by the single goal. Every game that we've won, bar the last game against Sheffield United, we've won by 2 clear goals. Does that give you any sort of indication of the way they're attacking at the moment?
I think so. I think they're not as fluid, and I think they're feeling their way into the season. We have seen it with good teams before, like Man City. They don't start the season that well, but they still kind of get results before they really get going second half of the season. Not to say that Arsenal are going to do that, but I'm just saying we can't write it off just because they're having this kind of start to the season that they're not playing well. I still think they're playing in a controlled manner, but I agree with you. I think if it comes to a case of who can be more fluid in possession and who can create more chances, maybe Tottenham are in the ascendancy in that factor because we're looking more confident, we're looking sharper, and I actually believe we'll get into the tactical battles later on in the video, but I really think where there are some things in this game that we are on the pitch right now that we're looking more confident, we're doing better at. If, for example, opening out space through ball carrying and things like that. Arsenal seem to be more looking to control by passing the ball, having a lot more passes and just keeping the ball, keeping possession, keeping things simple. And then when they find the opportunities to kind of try and open up the opposition, they're going for it. Whereas Tottenham, I feel like, are trying to create openings at every single moment, and we're trying to open up space through a lot more through dribbling and ball carrying ability. And in this kind of game, that could be massive when it comes to who actually gets control of this game.
In terms of the head-to-head between Spurs and Arsenal, it doesn't make for pretty reading if you're a Spurs fan, to be honest. 4 losses in the last 5 games, but funnily enough, that win that Spurs did have is probably the most important out of the 5 games, where we absolutely tore them apart at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 2 seasons ago now. But I mean, we've just been in disarray in this time, and I think the difference between now and then is actually we've got a clear way of playing now. We're back to our roots. We're back to our DNA, and things are starting to look like like positive for the first time in many years in the Spurs shirt.
I think, yeah, obviously the game plan for the past few times we've been to the Emirates has always been, can we contain them and hit them on the counter attack? And it's always going to be about how quickly we can make those transitions happen, where we can win the ball and where we can hit them in behind. It's not going to be like that in this game. This is going to be, we're not going to be so interested in stopping Arsenal from playing, albeit I'm sure we'll try. The game plan isn't going to be, let's try and stop Arsenal from playing and then try and basically pick up the pieces when we get the opportunity to get forward and try and basically hurt them. It's going to be, we're going to be trying to dominate and we're going to be trying to hurt them as much as possible. And Arsenal, we're just going to try and prevent Arsenal as much as possible from having the good quality chances. But we know they will have, because we're going to be committing risk, but so will they. And it's going to be about who can be more clinical today, who can have more quality. And it's going to be a very different game, I think, from the previous trips to the Emirates or the previous North London derbies, because I feel like we've always gone into those games with a bit of fear of what Arsenal can do, more than confident of what we're able to do. Always when we're doing these previews in previous North London derbies, it was always about how compact we can be, how solid we can be, and where can we hurt them on the counter, where will the space be. But this is going to be very different. It's always going to be, how much can we get Maddison on the ball, how much can we dominate the ball, what can Bissouma do in midfield, can he win that midfield battle? That's what it's going to be more about than containing Arsenal, and that's the most exciting thing. And look, at the end of the day, then maybe we will get completely undone and maybe we'll get battered by Arsenal. But what I want to see is Tottenham trying to play their type of football and trying to not just contain Arsenal, but bloody their noses as well, and actually try and dominate the ball and try and frustrate them with our possession as well. And that's what I'm excited to see. So as much as the form has been bad, I don't think it's going to have any bearing as to how this game is going to go.
And also, like, since the beginning of last season, because of how good Arsenal have been, not many teams go and try and play their football against Arsenal. Everyone's trying to stop them and stop what they're doing. And actually, I actually think, like, when you see teams going and pressing Arsenal and going and harassing Arsenal and going and being, they don't like that. They don't like that at all. And I think that's exactly what Spurs are going to do. They're going to try and press high up. And I think we can force them into making mistakes out of that back line, especially through the likes of Gabriel and Zinchenko. I know Zinchenko has got top quality on the ball, but defensively, he ain't the best left back. And I think that's the key areas which we need to target. But in terms of Arsenal's ones to watch, obviously, we've got Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard there. Saka has started the season well in terms of numbers, but I don't think he's actually started the season well in terms of performance. Odegaard, I think, has been very central and pretty much picked up where he's left off last season. I think he's been brilliant this season. But have you noticed that with Saka?
I think, yeah, he hasn't maybe started the season as well as he could have. I still think he's a massive threat, and obviously he scored that amazing goal against Forest right at the beginning of the season, and it looked like, and at that point you're thinking, oh God, is he going to have a complete worldie of a season? And I think he's been good, don't get me wrong. I think he's had a really solid start, but I think it's probably, that's what it is from his standards. But that's the thing, he's set himself such high standards where he's got 4 goal contributions in 5 games, and we're talking about a fairly poor start from him. I wouldn't say it's poor. I would say he just hasn't got maybe to the levels that he was last season. But I think I looked at it when I was looking at the tactical battles. The underlying numbers are still very strong for Saka. So I would still say he's probably getting more attention than he was last season. Maybe more teams are doubling up on him, recognising that threat, but he's still coming up with the goal contributions. He's still making an impact in games. So if I was an Arsenal fan, I'm not worried about Saka at all at the moment. Odegaard as well, playing very, very well. Hasn't maybe created as many chances as he did, as he was last season, but he's still providing that goal threat. And when it comes to like the build-up play, he's still as effective as ever. So they're 2 players who they're just playing out of their skin at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah. In terms of the predicted lineup for Arsenal, if you bring this one up, we think it's going to be David Raya in goal, which for me is not a great move for us because I'd much prefer to see Ramsdale in goal, to be honest. But a back 4 of Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Rice, Havertz, Odegaard in the midfield 3 with Saka, Trossard supporting Gabriel Jesus. I think potential what might happen is, Havertz might come out for someone like Fabio Vieira. But apart from that, I think it's pretty much that lineup is probably going to be signed, sealed and delivered. But in terms of that on the pitch, I mean, the key battles, obviously Rice against Bissouma, Saka against Destiny Udogie. How do you envisage that battle between Saka and Destiny going?
I think if there is any fullback in the league who can keep up physically with strength and pace with Saka, I think it is Destiny. So I actually see him not having an easy time, but I can see him not getting completely done by Bukayo Saka. I see Saka having a bit of trouble trying to get round him, but it's all going to be about how quickly Udogie can basically get back into his position defensively and not get caught out, and how quickly Arsenal can find Saka in that space. And if they can find him very quickly and catch us off guard, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for us to contain him. But if we can slow down Arsenal's attacks and make sure we're in our defensive formation, I do envisage that Udogie can not have him in his pocket. I'll be very surprised if Saka's not able to find some moments of quality where he's able to dig out crosses or have some shots on goal. But I think he's going to be able to, more than most fullbacks in the Premier League, compete physically with Saka, which is the main thing. I think Saka, when he comes up against most fullbacks in the Premier League, I think a lot of the time he's got the beating of them when it comes to pace and trickery, and he's got the beating of them physically. He's a lot stronger than people give him credit for, Saka. He's very good at holding off his defender and outmuscling them. But I think physically he's got his work cut out when it comes to destiny, and I've got some stats later on to show why as well.
In terms of the Spurs defence going into it, the last couple of times at the Emirates, obviously Eric Dyer's been there, Hugo Lloris has been there, bad mistakes from the back line, and also just Hugo Lloris pretty much just throwing it into his own net. With Vicario coming in now, and he's showed top levels of shot stopping so far this season, and a settled kind of pairing of Romero and Van de Ven, what kind of difference do you think that can make?
Massive, because if you remember, even last season, how the games went, the games were actually fairly tight up until 2 howlers from Lloris on both occasions. At the Emirates, we were drawing 1-1. And it was a close game. And then right at the beginning of the second half, Lloris makes a howler. And all of a sudden there's 2 on Arsenal. Yeah. And all of a sudden they take the ascendancy. At the White Hart Lane as well, it was 0-0 at the beginning of the game. And there wasn't too much going on. And then a massive howler from Lloris. And again, Arsenal take the ascendancy and go on to win 2-0. So without those howlers, I'm not saying we would have definitely got a result, but you never know what the games would have become and what would have happened if Arsenal didn't get the momentum from those big mistakes. So if Vicario can avoid doing what Lloris did last season, that's going to be a massive help for sure. And when it comes to the centre-backs, I remember last season, especially at the Emirates, Jesus was running rings around our centre-backs, I remember, with his false 9 play, coming deep, causing chaos, as he said he likes to do with his dribbling ability. And now when you've got a much better Romero with a much more composed Van de Ven, who's stronger and faster, I envisage him having a bit more difficulty getting the joy that he usually gets in those deeper areas. And then it's going to be about, for me, it's going to be about how they get the wide players involved, because they're the biggest goal threats usually in the Arsenal system. If you look at their goals last season, I think Saka got 15, Martinelli got 15, Odegaard as well behind the striker got 15, and then Jesus got 10, or 10 or 11. So he's obviously a goal threat, not to say he isn't, but he's less of a goal threat. He's more in terms of the build-up. The wide players are the biggest goal threat for them. So I think a big battle is going to be how our fullbacks can contain their wingers, and if they can basically stand up and not get completely done. Because I think that's where Arsenal get a lot of joy in the Premier League. They isolate the fullbacks and their 2 wingers. Obviously, it doesn't look like it's going to be Martinelli in this game, but it still might be. He's going to have a late test, I guess. But they're 2 of the best wingers in the league when it comes to one-on-one dribbling. They're that elite at it. They're so good. And that's where they get their joy. So if our fullbacks are not on it defensively, then they're in for a tough ride. But if they can be as solid as they have been this season, then I think we have definitely the tools to hurt them going the other way.
So having said that, then, would you consider playing Emerson Royale? Right?
I wouldn't. I tell you why, because of first of all, I think Porro has shown up defensively this season from what I've seen. He's been getting better defensively. So I want to, yeah, it is, but I want to give him the reward for showing improvement. And I don't want to have a player improve and then take him out because he might not have improved enough, if you know what I mean. I think he's showing enough improvement for me to say I can trust him playing at right back. And when it comes to having, first of all, in possession, he's a much better player than Emerson, and I think we're going to need that in this game, a bit of quality. And as well, if there is a pass on from deep, a run in behind to exploit the space, if we can, I much would rather Porro in the team to try and make that pass than Emerson. I feel like if Emerson's in there, yeah, he'll keep it simple, but let's say there's, Son's got a run in behind and there's a chance to get him in on a goal early on, I think Porro could pull off that pass. I don't think Emerson can. So that's why I'd much rather Porro in this game than Emerson. Plus, if Martinelli's out, Trossard, don't get me wrong, Trossard's still a good player, but I'm not as worried about his dribbling ability than I am about Martinelli's.
He's on form, Trossard. Last 2 games since coming in, 2 goals. Obviously, the one in the Premier League was a fantastic finish, wasn't it? Absolutely brilliant. But in terms of Pedro Porro, it's kind of like very high risk, very high reward starting Porro, because there's going to be a lot of space in behind. And if we can get those runners in, Heung-min Son especially, in behind the back line of Arsenal, like you say, Porro is that one that can play that wonder ball, that can feed him. We've seen it before this season. We saw it against Burnley with their high line, how Porro's amazing ball-playing ability can really hurt Arsenal. So I think, I think you're right, to be honest. I think you're right, to be honest, to start Pedro Porro. But it could be a case of, if we do take the lead going into the last half an hour, last 20 minutes, maybe bringing on an Emerson Royale to just shore up that back line for the Arsenal onslaught coming.
I think so. I think maybe if we're in the lead or we're looking, or we're drawing even and we're looking to get a result, I think Emerson, especially if they're pumping crosses in the box and all that kind of stuff, I think his height could definitely be valuable. Obviously, Emerson's still a very good right back, so I think he could definitely use his value, but I think Porro has to start in this game. And I think, look, if we're really going to go there and show what we're about, I think we have to have our best footballers on the pitch and our best ball players on the pitch. And I think Porro is definitely part of that. So I don't want to go in there fearing about what he's going to do defensively and what's going to happen. I want to go in there, them fearing what he's going to do on the ball. That's what I want.
Wow, it's going to be a long weekend before the derby on Sunday.
Yeah,
it's going to be intense atmosphere. I think this is probably going to be like the highest hope Spurs have gone into this game in a while, probably since the Pochettino days, to be fair. And the atmosphere from the Spurs fans alone is probably going to be the best it's been in a long while. I think this season, the atmosphere from the Spurs fans has been something else. It really is. And I think we're going to really embody that motto, to dare is to do, going into this game.
If we do get a result, though, on, let's say we somehow win on Sunday, how hard will it be to keep our feet on the ground if we go? It's going to be very difficult to keep our feet on the ground.
But you know what? We've got a game
Emirates.
Against Liverpool coming up straight after it.
It's also going to be a difficult game, yeah.
So we're going to have to really kind of... Can you imagine, like, being undefeated from those 2 games going into the, like, another kind of, like, favourable run?
I mean, look, if we get past these 2 games with unbeaten and even get a victory in there, even just one victory, there's no one to fear. Obviously, Man City is unbelievable, but like, apart from, like, I don't know when we face them, but first we got a great record against Man City.
We faced them early December.
I think okay. So, but it's like if we come away from these games without loss, you go into these other games thinking, why should we be nervous? We went into these very difficult games and got results.
Confidence levels will go through the roof.
Exactly. I think it's going to be so telling in this game how far away or how much work Postecoglou's done in the beginning of the season to how far we've been. Part of me feels like this game. You know what it feels like for me? I hope it doesn't come about this way, but if you remember when Man City just first got Guardiola, they won their first 10 games of the season in all competitions. They were like playing such lovely football, and everyone was like, oh, tiki-takas at Man City, Guardiola's going to win the league. And then they had their first real test. They came to White Hart Lane under Spurs, under Pochettino, and we absolutely turned them over and we battered them, and it was 2-0, and then that was a real awakening for Pep about how much work he's still got to do at Man City. And I worry that it could be this kind of situation going into this game. I hope it's not, but a part of me feels like it could be something like that as well.
Way to bring the mood down, Sim, eh?
I'm just saying, there's 2 ways of looking at it. That's just I'm worried of that kind of scenario is definitely possible.
I get it. Yeah.
But I'm looking at the underlying numbers. I'm looking at how we're playing, and I'm looking how we can exploit Arsenal. I'm seeing things that definitely can be in our favour, 100%.
Yeah. The problem is like, we can analyze these games till the cows come home, but usually when we go to the Emirates, it's usually the same story every time. But it's about us. It's on us to really go and dispel those kind of previous moments against them and really play our game. And I think if we focus on ourselves and play our game, I really think we can come away with a result. So
there's been a lot of talk, though. We'll get into the predicted lineup, but I guess it was worth a conversation in the preview. There's been a lot of talk about what front 3 we should be playing in this game. obviously there's the front three that's been in our last 2 games, Solomon, Son and Kulusevski. We've scored 7 goals in our last 2 games. They've been pretty good when starting together, and I envisage that Postecoglou will probably go unchanged. I don't think he's going to change it up just for this fixture, but there are definitely arguments to bring in Brennan Johnson on the right hand side or the left hand side with his pace in behind. There are arguments as well, maybe do we want the shithousery or the physicality of Richarlison in this team as well to maybe cause Arsenal more problems with Richarlison as well coming off the bench and scoring. Is there any sort of argument to say maybe Son on the left, Richarlison in, or maybe Brennan Johnson coming in?
I personally would really like to see Brennan Johnson start this game. I think the attributes that he has, the skill set that he has, are exactly the skill set we need to combat the Arsenal high line. Imagine his pace and Heung-min Son's pace, who are both like kind of demons playing in behind the defence. I think we should have that dual threat of both of them coming into this game and starting from the off and really giving them something proper to think about going the other way. Because if we have one of them, then yeah, that's great. But 2 of them would be unbelievable in my opinion. And I would love to see whether it be Kulusevski on the right or on the left. I don't really mind at this stage, but I want to see Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, Heung-min Son starting as the front 3.
Yeah, I think part of me wants... I think I want Johnson to start because I think that dual threat of running in behind that searing pace is going to really threaten the life out of Arsenal. I think if we were to start with Solomon Kulusevski, they offered 2 different kinds of threats, but they're definitely more ball to feet players than Johnson. He's definitely more of a running behind. I'm going to be a willing runner for the team, and I'm going to be creating space in that way. And he's got the pace as well. If you give him a large space to run into, he can definitely try and exploit that. I definitely would want one of Solomon or Kulusevski in the team though, just because I think it's important not to have every player in that front line just be a running behind player. You need to have a player who's able to take the ball into feet and challenge the fullbacks with their dribbling ability and have a bit of physicality as well. So that's why I want Kulusevski in the team. But I think tactically it makes the most sense to have Brennan Johnson in the team. But it is very harsh to drop one of Kulusevski or Solomon given the form that they've shown in the last 2 games. So I wonder what he will do. When it comes to Richarlison, I think I wouldn't start him in this game. I think it's a kind of sub where if we're maybe losing and we're starting to get to a stage where we're pumping crosses in the box, he can be a late change to bring on and give a different threat, but I don't think I would start him.
But you know what you're saying about Solomon, that it would be harsh, but this is the reality of being at a big club. Having different options and having different options that suit different games, horses for courses and all that. And I think like with the threat that Brennan Johnson holds and Heung-min Son hold in behind, exactly with the way Arsenal are going to play, we need to play the best skill set of players that can hurt Arsenal the most. And I think, there will be other games where Manor Solomon will probably have the skill set to hurt a different style of team. So like a team that has a low block, for instance, like Sheffield United, I'd prefer to have Solomon there than probably a Brennan Johnson. So I think like you got to play for the team that you're playing against. And yes, Ange has got to be ruthless in a sense of just because you played well the last game, it doesn't mean your skill set is going to be the best skill set to have in the next game.
And that's what a lot of the best managers do, don't they? Especially that's what Fergie, I thought that was one of his best attributes. He really picked the best team for that game, regardless of form. I remember there was one game, I think Berbatov got golden boot in a season and he left him out the whole squad of the Champions League final because he didn't feel like he's going to be suited for this game. So like, I agree with you. I think if Ange is ruthless, I think Johnson comes in. Is there a case to say Johnson central, Son on the left and Kulu on the right?
I think look, there is a case to say that, but for me, I think like those 3 should be extremely fluid. We need to keep them guessing for pretty much the whole game. So I want to see, let's say Kulusevski starts on the right, Johnson starts on the left, Son starts through the middle. They could be swapping and changing throughout the whole game just to keep them guessing throughout the whole game. Because I think Kulusevski can play on the left. I think Johnson can play on the left. Sonny can play on the left and they can all play on the right. Apart from Kulusevski, I think Johnson and Son can have time in the middle as well. So I don't think it should be kind of married to a specific position throughout the game. I think they should be completely fluid throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I would like to see that. And I think we're pretty good at that. Like we're it's the players seem fluid, but it's not necessarily the positions are fluid. The positions are set, but who's in those positions seems to change a lot throughout the game, and I would like to see that as well in the front three. But it's going to be very interesting come the lineup what he does end up going with. I do anticipate him probably sticking with the front three, but if we do see the lineup and Johnson's in there, I'll be thinking, okay, he's got a plan for today, and I'll be very excited.
And I think like if he does do that, that tells me as well, like, come on, this guy is a ruthless manager and he's very tactically aware about the opposition and the ways that we can hurt them as well, in my opinion. So look, that is the match preview. Score prediction, you sticking with it?
I said 3-2 Spurs, and I'm going to stick with it.
Come on, we're going to the Emirates and taking 3 points, people. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Spurs. I do think like there's going to be just so many chances, and I kind of do feel like there will be more than 3 goals in this game, but I am just going to stick with my original prediction and go for 2-1. And I'm going to say that Spurs get an early goal in this. Arsenal peg one back, and then Spurs get a late goal to win it, maybe through Son or Brennan Johnson or someone like that. So, look, it's going to be an interesting game, a really interesting game. I think Arsenal fans coming into this are going into it very arrogant, not knowing what Spurs can bring. I mean, all of them are saying, oh, I haven't even watched Spurs this season.
I guess from an Arsenal point of view, they would, I mean, which we saw the Arsenal fans who came to the studio, they arguing, look, we've seen it all before. Tottenham have a good start and they come to the Emirates and get turned over, and all of a sudden it starts going downhill. So from their point of view, they probably think it's going to be business as usual, but obviously they're not watching us week in, week out. They can't see the proper changes that are going on at Tottenham, and maybe there's just they might be seeing the results, but it's all about, obviously we watch the 90 minutes and we see every kick of the ball, and we can obviously see what a massive change that there has been at Tottenham. Not to say that that's going to be enough to definitely get a result in this game, but I can assure any Arsenal fan it's definitely going to be a different game at the Emirates than it usually is. I assure them that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to say, like, with the start of the season that we have had, we've kind of seen we've passed pretty much every test with flying colours so far. But I think now in these 2 games we're going to see, like I keep saying, but we're here now. Now we're going to really see what this team is about and where we're really at. And look, there is a chance. I'm going into this completely with my eyes wide open, as Ange likes to say, but there is a chance that we get completely turned over in this game. There is, of course there is. But I'm going to back the boys, and I'm going to back that what Ange is trying to do. And I think the kind of threats that we have really can be there to turn Arsenal over. So I'm not expecting a win, but I'm very hopeful of a win.
What about physically, like set pieces and stuff? I'm trying to think who might have the advantage there, because Arsenal are fairly decent from their corners, aren't they? They've scored
a lot of corners in the past year.
Yeah, that's one of our weaknesses.
We've got Mickey van der Ven now, who is not, look, let's be honest, he's not the best aerially, but he can be. He's very strong and he's very tall, so I don't understand why he's not the best aerially.
What surprised me was I saw a stat the other day when it said the average height of the team throughout the Premier League, and Tottenham was second.
Yeah.
And that surprised me, because I'm looking at our team and I'm like, we got Porro, we got Solomon, we got Son, we got Maddison. Romero is not the tallest for a centre back, so like how I'm comparing like Arsenal, like Gabriel, Saliba, White, they're all pretty tall. So I was thinking, how do we have the second highest in the league? But
I think Fraser Forster.
Yeah, Forster. I guess Forster counts.
You got Vicario.
How tall is Udogie? Is he 6 foot?
I think Udogi's fairly tall as well.
Basuma's probably tall. Kulusevski's
I don't even think
6 foot.
Basuma's that tall, is he?
Is he 6 foot now?
I'm not sure.
I think Sarr might be fairly tall.
Sarr is tall, yeah.
I think Kulusevski's over 6 foot.
Yeah.
So we do have some height. So hopefully that's something we can overcome. But that is something that I'm worried about. Hopefully we don't give away too many stupid set pieces, because I don't want to give them that opportunity.
Well, I think what's really important for us this game is Bissouma. If Bissouma has a good game, and if Bissouma plays like he has been doing all season and just controls that midfield and shows up every midfielder that he comes up against, because like he basically against Manchester United, Casemiro just was irrelevant in that game, because Bissouma just basically just dribbled past him pretty much every time. If he can do that to Declan Rice in this game, like, I think that gives us a massive advantage.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think it really would help Tottenham if Bissouma can use that ball carrying ability that he has been showing this season. That would really help open up the space. It would draw attention towards him as well. And if that happens, then it should open up space for the likes of Maddison to operate in between the lines and pick up the ball in more dangerous areas. And that's where it could be the difference, because if Rice can't show the ball carrying ability ability that Bissouma has been doing, I could anticipate that Odegaard could be a bit quieter than what Maddison is, if that is the case. So that is one battle I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, and Bissouma has previous of playing really well against Arsenal as well for Brighton. So I mean, look, just if he brings his A game, I think that just gives us such an advantage, to be honest, Bissouma. And it'll just because of what Arsenal fans have been saying to us as well over the last week,
it'll be so
like
sweet.
Completely disregarding Bissouma like he's just some average
They said
player.
he's been all right. They said he's
know
been
what I
all
mean?
right. It's like you haven't watched him if you think he's been all right.
Come on,
it's unbelievable.
He's been all right. I mean, he basically, like I keep saying, like Rice can only dream of having the ball carrying ability that Bissouma brings to a football game. But look, that is our match preview. I want to know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on the game. Do you think that we can go to the Emirates and take all 3 points?